Follow the money. All of the factors above contribute to an atmosphere whereby tens of millions of Americans naturally shy away from the use of marijuana, primarily out of fear of punishment. That point is indisputable. Further, we contend that this artificial reduction in marijuana use leads to the greater use of alcohol among the public. If you consider the total number of Americans consuming alcohol every week, common sense dictates that at least some of them, or perhaps many of them, would occasionally or regularly use marijuana instead if there were absolutely no sanctions or stigma associated with its use. What is debatable, however, is whether elected officials, corporate leaders, and regulatory bodies like USA Swimming are sincere in their efforts to try to reduce marijuana use, or are they intentionally driving people to drink? As we consider the motivation of these entities' actions, we would like to remind you of the old adage, follow the money. Let's take the athletic institutions first, specifically those involved in the suspensions of Michael Phelps and Ricky Williams. Surely USA Swimming, recognized by the U.S. Olympic Committee as the national governing body for the sport of swimming, did not suspend the 2008 USOC Sportsman of the Year without consulting with the Olympic Committee first. When confronted with the news that Phelps had been drinking excessively and smoking a little pot, might the USOC have perceived any conflict of interest, knowing that Anheuser-Busch, maker of Budweiser beer, was the official international beer sponsor for the 2008 Olympics, and that its brands are the official beer of the USOC itself? The financial terms of this arrangement are not public, but securing the use of the Olympic logo for use on products in 30 countries around the world can hardly come cheap. Similarly, when deciding whether to sanction players like Ricky Williams or Kevin Falk, how heavily does it weigh in the mind of NFL executives that the league and its respective teams annually receive more than $100 million combined from sponsorship deals with beer makers like Coors and Anheuser-Busch? If there is one thing sports executives understand, it is competition, and there is no doubt that marijuana and beer are competing products. Is it plausible that the enemy of their friend has become their enemy? As far as America's elected officials go, it would be nice to believe that their actions, however misguided, were based on genuine concerns regarding the public's use of pot. In some cases they may be, but when pondering politicians' anti-marijuana motives, it is difficult to ignore the presence of a powerful Washington, D.C. lobby, the National Beer Wholesalers Association. Interestingly, the National Beer Wholesalers Association started flexing its financial muscles on Capitol Hill to a far greater degree around the same time that Congress and the Drug Czar's office launched the National Youth Anti-Drug Media Campaign. In the 1997 through 98 political cycle, the NBWA contributed just $1.3 million to federal candidates. In the 1999 through 2000 and 2001 through 2 cycles, their contributions jumped to $1.87 million and $2.07 million respectively, placing them in the top 12 among all political action committees. But America's beer lobby was just getting warmed up. In the 3 political cycles between 2003 and 2008 combined, the NBWA gave more than $8 million to federal candidates and ranked among the top 5 most generous PACs each cycle, reaching the number 2 slot in 2005 through 6. What did the NBWA buy with this money? It's hard to say, but consider this: the use of alcohol is illegal for teens, and a strong case can be made, as we are doing with this book, that it is far more harmful for the user than marijuana. Yet this original bill authorizing the media campaign specifically banned the use of campaign funds to address underage drinking. In fact, when lawmakers attempted to amend the bill so that anti-alcohol messages could be included, the NBWA strongly opposed the amendment. To this day, the National Youth Anti-Drug Media Campaign has remained almost entirely alcohol-free. Conversely, when congressional leaders reauthorized the media campaign in 2006, they inserted a provision encouraging the drug czar to keep positioning marijuana as public enemy number 1. The provision reads, "In conducting advertising and activities otherwise authorized under this section, the director may emphasize prevention of youth marijuana use." With respect to America's criminal policies, it also appears that the alcohol industry plays a role in the maintenance of prohibition. This was most certainly the case in 2008 when the California Beer and Beverage Distributors contributed $100,000 to the campaign against Proposition 5, the Nonviolent Offender Rehabilitation Act, NORA. This initiative proposed to, among other things, reduce the penalty for cannabis possession in California from a misdemeanor to an infraction similar to a traffic ticket. This change would have ensured that those caught with marijuana would not be burdened with criminal records for the rest of their lives. Why did the beverage industry oppose Proposition 5? One can only speculate, but it seems likely that this was a good old-fashioned turf battle. The proposed reductions in marijuana penalties were a direct threat to their business. In the end, despite the evidence presented, we can't say for certain whether all of the entities described in this chapter are intentionally driving Americans toward alcohol through their anti-marijuana actions. Regardless of their motivations, however, the bottom line is that their collective efforts are contributing to a definite outcome: less marijuana use and more alcohol use. Tragically, this result is leading, as we will see in the following chapter, to a shocking array of damaging effects upon our society.